the lead up to this year's election, social media companies came under intense pressure to crack down on misinformation. Twitter, Facebook, Google all taking various steps to slow the spread of incorrect info, which led to criticism over, quote, censorship. Recently, there's been a major shift in conservative audiences, specifically to a new platform you may have heard of called Parler. Join us now to discuss is John Matze, who's the CEO of Parler. John, really great to have you. I've been eagerly looking forward to this conversation. I do want to start more broadly with the makeup of Parler's users, because you reportedly saw a massive surge in signups even over the course of just the last few days. And it does appear to be largely conservative, right-leaning. If I'm not mistaken, you've previously encouraged more liberal kind of thinkers on to sign up for the platform. But how worried are you about having a relatively homogenous platform inside conservative political circles?
Hi, thank you for having me. And I don't know that it's really going to be an issue that we have primarily conservatives coming on today. I think right now they feel very much like outcasts on these other platforms. When they're getting kicked off, they have nowhere else to go. And so, Parler is where they're all coming to. And we're seeing a lot of very influential figures coming on, too. Now, with that, I think in time, we're going to see a more diverse audience coming on as well, because no one wants to stay somewhere where they don't have some discussion, debate, and discourse. So I think people will start leaving. At least if they're not leaving, they're going to come to Parler if they're on the left, if they're center, because they want to get into debates and discussion.
There's been at least some suggestion on Twitter about trying to get @real Donald Trump firmly into the lane of Parler. Have you had conversations with the president or his advisors about getting an official presidential account?
Well, we don't have any official presidential account, and he doesn't have an account today. Of course, the president would be welcome onto Parler, and so would former Vice President Joe Biden. He would be welcome on Parler as well. In fact, actually, Joe Biden tweeted about Parler before President Trump did, even though it wasn't in the most flattering terms. It was in reference to somebody, but it was cool. It's certainly cool to see.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess in the spirit of no press is bad press here. There is not an @real Donald Trump account, but there is an @Team Trump account. It touts, according to its page on Parler, 1.9 million followers. I got to imagine that's one of your largest accounts. I do want to pull up if we do have this was a claim that the Trump campaign that on that account just made in the last few days. They claim that the Trump campaign won the state of Pennsylvania. This is the sort of information here, John, that has been posted onto other platforms and has been taken down. It's still very much active on Parler. How do you respond to people who say it's clearly a problem to have a platform? There it is there on your screen. You clearly have a platform here that's allowing for false information to be spread and to stay, because we know the president did not win the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Well, we don't know who won it yet, technically, right? I mean, technically, everyone has presumed Biden will win, and I personally think that Biden will probably take the state. But there is still no official, delegates that have come out of the state. There's no official calling by the government themselves, and there's currently litigation there, so he's entitled to his opinion. And I think it's really wrong to take that down. We should judge for ourselves whether or not we think what he's saying is true. And I think it's going to be very interesting when you get statements that come out unfiltered. People can judge for themselves. And frankly, when I saw that parlay, because I saw the parlay come up, I thought, wow, that's a little bold. But I mean, he's entitled to say it. Anybody can say what they want. It's a free country.
Okay, fair enough. So that then begs, raises another few questions. Number one, if and when we do get certification from election officials in the Keystone State, and if those election results do say firmly that Joe Biden won Pennsylvania, will there be steps from Parler's team to go to a parlay, as you call it, just the one we had on the screen, to correct the measure, to take it down? What are your plans for how that will work?
No, because, everybody would know at that point that he was wrong. And they'd find out immediately if an official, the official government came out and said, look at Biden won Pennsylvania, then there's no reason to fact check him because he made a false statement. Let it stand and let him kind of let everybody judge it for themselves. And, looking at it and saying, wow, he made an incorrect call. Because right now,
But John, with all due
wrong.
respect, and this is where I want to push you, and I'm really appreciative you take the time for us, though. You say everybody would know that he's wrong. I just got back from the campaign trail. I was in Harrisburg, I was in Philadelphia, I was in Wilmington the better part of the last week. I've spoken with a lot of loyal Trump supporters. I've traveled this country. What a privilege it is to meet Trump voters in rural America. When the president says something, John, they believe it. And Trump voter after Trump voter told me, well, this election's rigged, it's stolen, it's undemocratic, they're taking it away from the president. You say everyone would know that the president or Team Trump is wrong, but that's just not true. People believe what he says. So how are you grappling with those conversations as a platform, knowing you do deal, whether it's Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or anyone else? Politicians lie, and their offices lie.
Well, first off, anybody that's fact-checking any statement about whether or not a president or a presidential candidate has won any state right now is speaking prematurely. Even though Joe Biden is the presumptive nominee, he is not the official nominee yet, right? And so there's a big difference. And Facebook and Twitter have been incorrectly fact-checking them. In fact, I have made a parlay fact-checking Twitter because they are wrong. We don't fact-check people on Parler, but I felt like it'd be fun to fact-check Twitter. But, that being said, one thing that I really like about Cheddar and you guys is your news is always very, very positive. And I like that. I like that a lot. And that's genuine. And what we believe, too, at Parler is that we believe in people and their ability to solve these things on their own without our heavy hand. We don't want to get involved. And so if we get involved, it's not going to change the president's opinion. He's still going to go out and give speeches. He's still going to talk like, it was stolen from him. Whether or not we allow that content is not going to change what he says and is not going to change what people think. And so we have to have a discussion as a community, as people, as Americans, and say there is some discrepancies that people are upset about. We need to solve them together so we can move on as a country and still have faith in our system. And so we need to do that through conversation, not censorship.
So are you looking to take in, and to what degree are you hoping to take in community engagement? Because first of all, I want to tip my cap to you because there's never been an easy time to enter into the space that you are getting into, especially not in this climate, and the rules and regulatory conversations to have, whether it's Parler or Clubhouse or any new entrant in the space. This is difficult stuff that you are deciding to get into. To what degree will you be taking in community input over how to best police policies? And are you committed to a strong opinions weekly held viewpoint that what is best today may not be best for Parler 6 months from now?
Well, certainly things change all the time and very fast, right? We've had to update our community guidelines multiple times, most of it having to do with spam or advertisements. That's been a challenge, and I will admit that. But, for the most part, what we want to do is try to encompass the idea of the First Amendment and what the law says people can say. We want to respect that online. And we want to be have as little involvement as possible with police in the community. We don't really want that job. It's an expensive job. It's a difficult job. And it's not one that's kind of in the spirit of the First Amendment. So we're hoping to do as much as possible to avoid moderation. And we have even a community jury system is what we use to kind of emulate the legal system where if something's reported, it goes to court, a little Parler court, and you have jurors of your peers that vote on it. And so this is the theme and the style. Everything is very much kind of focused around the concepts of what is allowed in America.
Final question here, John. I'm curious about the app's monetization model, and one thing we cover very closely at Cheddar is the relationship between app developers and the Google Play Store, and a lot of consternation at times with the Apple Store. You know as well as I do, those specific tech entities face an onslaught of accusations of monopolistic behavior, and it largely has a negative, deleterious impact on an app just like Parler, trying to get in the space, trying to be competitive. What does that relationship look like, and specifically on the monetization model and some of those conversations?
Well, when it comes to monetization, I think Apple's entitled to make some money, whether or not they force people to use their payment processor. I think that's a fair debate. Google is a very large company. It is very possible that they are a monopoly. I think that's worth looking into. But I think Parler is evidence that Twitter and Facebook can be tackled. It is possible for a new person to enter this market, and I think that's what we're proving. I really enjoy our relationship with all the the different companies that we work with. And so far, we have very good standing with the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, and we hope to keep it that way. And I think you're right. It is something that the world needs to look into. Can Google and can Apple be competed with? And so that's a fair question.
Finally, before I let you go, was this how you envisioned Parler when you got it off the ground? I think people see the Dan Bonginos of the world. They are eagerly urging Twitter users in the conservative sphere to break off from the Jack Dorsey lane and to go into yours. Is this how it was originally constructed? Did you see it going this way, or is this sort of how it has naturally evolved?
Well, I'm kind of an optimist about the world a lot of times. And so when I see the amount of kind of heavy-handedness coming from other social media outlets, I mean, I suspected it was possible that the fact checking would get this far, and would start driving conservatives away. But I don't know if I really actually believed it myself until more recently. Seeing it has really kind of shocked me, even how quickly this has grown and kind of gotten bigger. Our big thing that when we started was, yes, we want free speech, but our other big thing is we wanted to solve data privacy. We don't think it's right that these big companies are taking people's data and selling it and using it to work with advertisers to manipulate people and make money. And so that was our other big core principle. And actually, I'm almost shocked that that hasn't become one of our biggest selling points either, because we keep people's information private and we don't try to do a lot of the things that have gotten these companies into trouble.
So I'm running out of time, but to confirm, so you don't sell user data to the highest bidder in the spirit of what we're used to from other platforms?
No, not at all. It's even in our privacy policy. We don't sell data. We don't give it away. We even try to do what I like to call humane advertising, where your advertising is done in a way where you're not trying to manipulate people, where you're really using minimal targeting, as minimum as possible, to still be effective to get to people. And I think that's important to remember today, when people are actually being actively manipulated by advertising using data and targeting. Sure. And so this is a big problem to solve, and we're hoping to solve it. And we're starting strong. We're doing really well with our advertising network, and it's not targeted, and it doesn't use a lot of data. It uses very little.
Hey, you got the numbers there. There's no doubt. John Mate, CEO of Parler. John, thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Good luck on the road ahead. I hope you will consider rejoining the show at some point down the line, because this is a really important moment. Some of the biggest names in conservative politics are really flocking, and they're encouraging a lot of Americans to give your app a fair shake. And so I'm really appreciative you take the time and answer a few tough questions. John Mate, CEO of Parler. Thanks for being here, John.